Hello, everyone. My name is Tony Sparks, and this is session 4 of Don't Block Me, Block You. In this session, we're going to talk about something really dope. We're going to build a decentralized application. More specifically, I already built one, but I'm going to show you guys how it works. And we're going to take some form data, and we're going to make a 721 token out of it. It's going to be epic. And I built it with Sales.js. It's awesome. I like Sales. Sales is a great framework for building Node.js applications. But all that being said, let's begin. So I'm gonna share my screen. You guys are gonna see what I see. That's how we do things at Don't Block Me, Block You. All right, here we go. So this is a form I created. And we're gonna enter this information. So to show you guys I'm not fooling around, I'm gonna type Tony Sparks, block you. Yeah, that's my full name. And then there's gonna be a test. I'm just gonna put test there. And then I'm gonna put this email, I'm gonna just change that around, to it doesn't matter. Block you. Right. So one thing I want to show you guys is see how this works, right? So before I click the button, we go on this process. I'm going to show you guys what's under the hood, right? So let's look at the code. It's about to get real code in this place. All right, so we're looking at the code. Here is this front end. That's just HTML stuff. That's cool, but it really goes down inside of the JavaScript. So the JavaScript is under assets, right? Under assets in the JavaScript folder, specifically in this survey page, JavaScript. And, we're going to look at this to see what's going on here. So Sales is like a nice situation. It takes all of the JavaScript and it compartmentalizes it and puts it in certain folders. So this JavaScript you see here is for this specific page. The page is called survey. This is going to be a survey at some point, but right now it's just some form data. And so, there's something I want to show you guys here, right? So there's a before amount and then mounted. Before amount is before the code gets, or the front end code gets displayed and stuff. Mounted is kind of like I would equate it to on ready, if you know JavaScript. So once the pages are loaded, right, the mounted code, it gets ran. First thing I do is I do a bind the UI actions. And the function for that is right here below in the methods. And, really all this does just says when the submit button is clicked, do some stuff, specifically submit the form, right? But not submit the form to the back end. Oh no, we're going to submit this to the blockchain, which is technically not my back end. All right. So, there's bind UI actions, right? And then here's this very dope class that I made. It's called MetaMask. And then it runs this function called enable. So before I show you this, what MetaMask does, this is kind of how, it shows you how early in the game this stuff is going in. Where, at first MetaMask, it's for decentralized applications. It holds your passwords, it holds your public key, it lets you send signed transactions to the blockchain. And in the beginning, you could let me clarify. So other websites, would just kind of be ready to use MetaMask. And so in the beginning, you can just go to a website and then it would just be like, oh, I know your private key. No, I'm sorry, your public key. I want to clarify, your public key. And I know that, and I can, load some stuff for you based off of that, but they changed it, I guess, because people were like, hey, I can also just store this. Now I know what's going on. I know your cookies and I know your public key and I can associate them and, I don't know, right? So these are things that they're like, hey man, let's have some privacy, so there's a privacy mode situation, in which case now you have to enable a website, decentralized application, to see your MetaMask default address and, more specifically, the public key associated with your account. So what I want to do is I'm going to go over to this assets into JavaScript. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I want to go to dependencies, right? I added this dependency called MetaMask. And this is just a nice little JavaScript object, right? It has some functions inside of it. They're all asynchronous. First one is install. And And basically it just checks to see if MetaMask is installed. If not, it throws like a error. And then it's like, is it locked? So that means basically, is it like in privacy mode? Is it like a situation where, you know, the public key is not viewable or accessible via Web3, which is a JavaScript library for interacting with the blockchain. So, and then there's like this enable, right? Enable, this function specifically, it caused this, you know, it acts this MetaMask Web3, you know, with this update. They added an Ethereum object to the window object, right? If you know JavaScript, it's just, you know, Windows, it's a thing, you know? And so they added Ethereum to it. And basically it says, if it's set, then it's going to call this Web3 object, you know, created, you know, the Web3 object with the Ethereum object right there. You know, I guess it injects the current provider. That's what the Ethereum object is. And then it basically says, is this enabled? And if it's enabled, then it, you know, it counts logs as enabled. Or I'm sorry, let's clarify. The function enable is a request to enable, to unlock, to allow the website that you're viewing to see your public key, okay? And then so once it runs the enable function, you know, it does the console log situation. And if like, let's say the pop-up comes up and you're like, no, I don't want this, then like, you know, that's what the catch is for. It basically throws an error. So going back to the code, I'm gonna close everything else so I'm not distracted. We see it acts if it's MetaMask is enabled, and then I just kind of counsel logs and stuff like Web3, and then it counts and stuff like that. And then, so we're looking over here at this code, the bind UI actions, it does that. And then we have the submit function. What does this do? It basically, you know, takes the form ID and then it serializes the array, basically converts it to a JSON, right? And then once the JSON is there, then, you know, I disable the button and then I console log, you know, the information. And then I add the token, you know, just submit it to this function, add token. So let's go down here, we're looking at add token. And then, so some of the things it does is it gets the Web3 object. It initializes the ABI. So the ABI for this contract, specifically the ERC 721 ABI for this contract, is just it's a interface. It stands for application binary interface, and it basically lets your code, like JavaScript, know what functions your smart contracts has, and then what variables, public or private, it has. Okay. All right. So that's, you know, you got to install the ABI, and then it's like it gets the address, and then it's like this owner. It gets the owner. That's the address of the person who's logged in. And then it initializes the contract using Web3, and then, or initializes an object of the contract using Web3, and then it takes the address of the specific contract, 721 contract that I created right there, and initializes an object with that address. So it basically points to my address, right? And then I take the data and I convert it into a JSON string, and then I console log all this stuff. You know, you got to console log things. It kind of like keeps you sane as a programmer, and, you know, prevents bugs. That's more important, right? And then, you know, it calls the function add token, right? Which is like a function inside of my smart contract. It takes specifically the owner, it takes the admin, and it takes a manager, right? These are just things that I made in my function. But this is kind of like different types of ownership or authorizations or whatever. So anyways, it adds this information, right? And then basically there's this callback. And usually, you know, on the front end, or, you know, more or less in general with Web3 though, you can, all these calls are like asynchronous. They're like promises. It doesn't happen immediately, like doing math. So there needs to be a function to like basically wait for the result of what happens and then does something accordingly. In this situation, it just, counts logs if there's an error or just, counts logs the result. This is all that matters, right? Before we click the button, let's go to the controller, right? So the way Sales works is, they keep all the assets or the front end like stuff, CSS, JavaScript, assets folder. All the controllers and stuff are inside of the API folder. And then specifically where I'm going to is in controllers, and then it's for view survey. So what's nice about this is, Sales generated this controller for me. I can show you guys the command shortly, but this is the controller where basically when you see the view page or the survey page, this is the controller that prepares the data, and does what controllers do. Controllers are like, hey, I'm gonna get some stuff from the back end, I'm gonna present it and get it ready for the front end so the front end can use it. All right, model view controller type of thing. So then let's see. So what I do is I have the address of my 721 token inside of my Web3 config. And then I also have the ABI inside of my config. So let's see what the config is, right? So specifically, right here under assets, there's the config folder. And Sales is all about convention over configuration, but configuration is still important. So meaning like, use the model view controller framework, but then like sometimes you have to configure this stuff. Like if you want to point to your database, right? That's live or somewhere else. This is where you add it specifically inside of data stores. And then, if you want to do this bootstrap thing, I'll show you guys like, another video where when your program starts and runs, you can have certain functions run like in the background, which is very clutch, especially if you're watching for events, listening for events, doing blockchain stuff. And then, so let's just pull up my ABI, right? So you can create your own config stuff, which is cool, right? And the way that you call it is very similar to the syntax I just showed you. And this is just like the ABI that I got from Remix. And I can show you guys that. So I went to Remix. This is where it goes down. I'm doing stuff in Remix. And I clicked this copy button right here. And then boom, I got the ABI. And I was like, you know what? I'll put this right here. And then like, so now, anytime I want the ABI, which is really big, JSON file, look at this, this is all the stuff, right? All the things. It's just right here conveniently. And so one thing I want to talk about at some point, video or whatever, is truffles. Truffle is very useful in that it compiles your contract for you, creates this ABI so you don't have to go to Remix and get it. But sometimes it's buggy, which is why I did what I did. And like, honestly, when I was developing, I didn't know about truffles at first. I ended up building my own situation, and this is a very useful situation, for interacting with blockchain stuff. That's why I really like Sales.js. I didn't have to do all the configuration. It was just like, yo, you're probably going to want to configure stuff at some point. So here you go. Tony Sparks. All right. So what are we doing here? So we have this ABI. Boom. I passed it in. Right. And then we have some other stuff like, the top two things doesn't matter. What matters is I take it here and I put it here. Right. I pass it to this front end. I return it. Like I said, this is a controller. So it takes back in information. And then it presents it to the front end to show you this stuff is real, right? I'm gonna show you how real this is. I'm gonna go to the views, right? So let's go to the views right here under pages, click survey, EJS, because we're out here using Vue.js. That's what Sales does off the bat. You got a framework. It's not like Remix and it's super complicated for no fucking reason. It's just, it's all the good stuff, right? So we're looking at this, and this is what I like about Sales, actually. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this ABI, I guess. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to show you how, like, basically you can just, get information to the front end. But then also, like, if you're just changing the view, specifically like, yeah, the view files and stuff right here. Like Sales doesn't have to like recompile and just kind of show you that. Boom, look at that, right? All that shit. I mean, all that stuff. There's a lot of stuff right there, you know? It's a lot of things. It's a lot of things right here. So we're just gonna get rid of that. Okay. All right, so that's some cool stuff. If you ever change the JavaScript, it is gonna like, you know, it's gonna need to refresh. You're gonna either do sales list, or I like to use nodemon.js. I'm sorry, nodemon app.js, and it allows for, if you do updates, automatically restarts the server for you. So I think we're about ready to click this button. Let's click at the console log real quick. Let's see what's going on there. Yep, here's some stuff. So I already have this enabled. You know, I can show you guys what it looks like if you don't have it enabled. Let me see. So I'll just put up incognito window. Do this. All right, it's like log in. I respect it, you know. It's like, yeah, you should log in. Okay, what is this specifically? Oh, I don't have MetaMask here. Oh, that's interesting. When you do incognito windows, you don't have MetaMask. What's up with that? That's a new thing. I'm not going to worry about that, but that's what happens when you don't have MetaMask sometimes. Like ideally, you want to handle a lot with like a proper error or something like that, error message. But I'm just going to proceed, right? So this says enable. Like if you guys use this code or whatever, or if you like do this, you'll see like it requests you to approve access, right? So we're over here, we're doing stuff. I'm just throwing things out here, you know, like don't block me, block you, doing stuff, right? And then we're gonna hit submit. I think it's about time for that, right? Let's see what happens. No more waiting. Cool. So here's all this stuff, right? That gets console logged. You see the owner address. This is my current like public key or whatever. You see some information here that's like, you know, some instance stuff. You know, I have an instance here. There's ABI stuff. Look at all that stuff. That's just real things, right? And then you have the token, which is like the object, right? And then right here you have this MetaMask. Now MetaMask is like, hey, Block U sent you a transaction to approve. Are you trying to approve it right now? And I'm going to approve it. Boom, look at that. I created this. I made this with my hands. You know, I'm a blockchain developer. It ain't that hard, right? I showed y'all how to do it. You know what I mean? Granted, I had to teach myself how to do it, but still it's not that hard because Tony Sparks is here to teach you. You know, don't block me, block you, baby. And that's what I do. So anyways, this transaction is running. It's going to the blockchain, right? Let me show you guys some stuff. Let's see what's good. Let's click this. All right, it's already confirmed or whatever. I wanted to see. Let's see here. I don't think it matters, but I'm just curious. Copy transaction ID. That's literally what I wanted. Like, I didn't see it, but that's what I wanted. All right, so I'm going to Robson test network. That's where this is operating at. So we do this, we do a search. Boom, look at that. I did that. Tony Sparks out here doing stuff for you. Don't block me, block you. So that's a transaction, right? And then to show you guys what it looks like in Remix, right? What are we doing? So let's go to this contract. What was that? Page 7. So it's probably page 6, right? Let's see what's good. Boom, look at that, right? It says Tony Sparks 8. It says don't block me, block you. And it says, you know, Tony7 at blockyou.com. You know, and I did that right before your eyes. Like, there is like no lies about that. Like, this is recorded, right? I made this stuff. I did it for you guys. And that's a quick lesson, man. I feel like that's everything. Let me check my list. So, yeah, the JavaScript, we did the MetaMask code, we reviewed the call, Then it says show controller, then show API, then I run a test, and then it says show proof. Yep. I wrote all this down too. I highly recommend you guys write down your goals like every day. You know, I wrote down this goal of this interview, and then now it's done, right? And it was probably like 10 minutes or something. I don't know how long it's been. But like I said, man, this is beautiful, right? So in the next episode of Don't Block Me, Block You, I will show you guys how to do the same thing I just did, but in the back end, you know, because, you know, MetaMask is always going to be there to help you, you know, especially if you're doing some back end serious coding. And I do that too. And I can show you guys how I do it too. So once again, don't block me, block you. I think I'm still recording. Let me stop. Hello, this is Tony Sparks. This is session 4, part 2.1-ish, right? I just watched the video and I just wanted to make sure I clarified some stuff. Specifically, I kind of breezed over this owner object, and like, you know, I wanted to make sure you guys understood. Make sure I'm sharing my screen now. I keep not sharing my screen. All right, now, all right, there we go. All right, cool. So now we're, you know, this owner, this dot owner, this is an object right here. This is where it's initiated. Now I know you guys can probably see it in the video, but I just wanted to make sure for people who wasn't like, you know, I don't know how this happens, right? You know, this Web3 object, basically that's right here. It has this accounts, and the default account is at index 0, right? That's it. Like nothing too complicated. Just want to make sure you guys understood that. And I'm just looking up. And then cells generate. I said I would show you guys soon. So I'll show you guys that real quick. Before I do that, I'll show you guys NodeMon, right? Look at that. NodeMon app.js. I mentioned that, you know, I think this is very, you know, useful for developing apps. Make sure you don't have to keep running this function called cells lift to basically redeploy your application every time you do some back-end changes like controller stuff, JavaScript stuff, you know, things like that, right? And then like we'll see what happens when I do this command. Cells generate age, and I'm just gonna say hello just for, you know, testing purposes. Boom. Yeah, so it did that, right? And like, so it says basically, it gives you these steps of how to like enable this page. There's specifically 3 steps that really matter. Or sorry, 2. One is you got to grab this routing information right here. You got to put that into the config routes. So another thing that configuration does, or the configuration file or folder has, is like ways to configure your routes, you know, so you can have specific API stuff, go to specific URLs, and specific URLs are handled by specific controllers, right? It's very specific over here. That's how we do it. That's how code is. And then, so that's one thing, right? And you got to go over here and watch this. I think what just happened is I want to go over to the assets, styles, right? And then go to this importer. That's what the direction said. I'm gonna add that right there. Boom, right? Hello. And then I want to show you guys a controller was generated. Boom, right? That's a controller. It's nice and empty, right? Look how fresh that is. You can just put some code in there, some logic. You know, it's not intimidating. It's almost empty. It's basically empty, right? And this is the power of cells, right? Now let me show you this. Like, so let's see what happens. So this is NodeMon, right? It knows that I added the cells, I'm sorry, the style sheet update, right? It didn't cause a refresh there, but it did do it when I did it the routes, right? You know, you probably couldn't see that, but it doesn't matter. So what are we gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna stop it, I'm gonna start it again. And then we'll do this hello page just so you guys see what for. Specifically, here's a little fun fact about cells. When you do stuff like add pages, it automatically, oh, let's see what's good. Sometimes you gotta get NodeMon a chance to get his stuff together. Okay, we're doing that. And then I'm just gonna go log in. Well, let me just show you real quick, right? So I'm gonna go to hello. And it's like, you gotta log in. You can't just be going to hello. You know what I mean? You know, who are you? I don't know you, all right? But then I'm gonna go to hello now. It's like, oh, I know who you are. Oh, yeah, you can see this page. And this is what the page looks like. It's nice and fresh, right? You can add some stuff to it. I can even show you what it looks like in the views. Pages, hello, boom, right? And if you ever want this to go to a different folder inside of views, just kind of got to add a slash. Like let's say I want an account, I would say account/hello, right? That's basically it, right? So that's, we went over this, we did NodeMon, we did the page generate, and I wanted to clarify. I think Vue.js is better than React, not Remix. Remix is kind of the shit. I like Remix, but you know, React is complicated. I've tried React stuff. I think it's more complicated than it should be. And I like Vue, right? And so sales knows that too. And so like that's it, right? I patched over the stuff. Hopefully you guys are like excited about the next video and stuff. And you know, the last video was golden. I think it was golden. Like I learned a lot of stuff and I just watched it and I made it. I made it. I think it was very informative is what I'm trying to say. So once again, don't block me, block you. Tony Sparks, baby. I'm gonna stop this recording.